Hi Imran.
Hey, hi.
Hi, this is Bharath, Director of Training and Placement at
Hello, Bharath sir.
Engineering College and Management Science.
Yes.
We are very grateful to have you on the session. Hi
The
Imran.
pleasure is mine, sir. Hey, hi. I feel like.
Hi, this is Bharath, Director of Training and Placement. You would be covering all the topics
Hello,
relating
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps, right? Engineering College and Management
Pretty much
Science.
everything for a beginner because I have omitted one thing that is Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to have
it's
you on
again
the
a very
session.
huge thing to be on.
Hi
So the
Imran.
pleasure is mine, sir. So I'll be covering like
Hi, this is Bharath,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and
be
the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
relating
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps, right?
Suffice.
Engineering College and Management.
Pretty much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session.
huge thing to be on.
College
So the
or
pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS,
I'll
so
be
that
covering
students will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and the
be
CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to have
it's
you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the
or
pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS, so
I'll be
that
covering
students will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and
be
the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share your
I have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS, so
I'll be
that students
covering
will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and
be
the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS, so
I'll be
that students
covering
will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and
be
the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS, so
I'll be
that students
covering
will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training and
system,
Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS,
I'll
so
be
that
covering
students will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College
So the pleasure is mine, sir. So
GDS, so
I'll be
that students
covering
will
like
also this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training and
system,
Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because we also
Suffice.
have College and
Pretty
Management.
much
Also
everything
like
for
to
a
request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College.
So the
First, we
pleasure is
want to
mine, sir. So
congratulate
I'll be
the
covering
student will
like
this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker, and the
be
CI/CD.
covering all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a
we
couple of
also
minutes
have
as
College
an
and
Pretty much
Management.
everything for a
Request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College.
So the
First, we
pleasure is
want to
mine, sir. So
congratulate
I'll be
the student
covering
will
like
this is Bharat,
the overall
Director
GitHub
of Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the
covering
CI/CD.
all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple
we
of
also
minutes
have
as an
College and
Pretty much
Management.
everything for a
Request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College.
So the
First, we
pleasure is
want to
mine, sir. So
congratulate
I'll be
the
covering
student will
like
this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the
covering
CI/CD.
all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a
we
couple of
also
minutes
have
as an
College and
Pretty much
Management.
everything for a
Request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College.
So the
First, we
pleasure is
want to
mine, sir. So
congratulate
I'll be
the
covering
student will
like
this is Bharat,
the overall
Director of
GitHub
Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the
covering
CI/CD.
all the topics
Hello,
related
Bharath
to
sir.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a
we
couple of
also
minutes
have
as
College
an
and
Pretty much
Management.
everything for a
Request
beginner
you to
because
share
I
your
have
experience
omitted
from
one thing that is
NIST.
Kubernetes
We are very
because
grateful to
it's
have you on
again
the
a very
session
huge
for
thing to be on.
College.
So the
First, we
pleasure is
want to
mine, sir. So
congratulate
I'll be
the
covering
student will
like
this is Bharat,
the overall
Director
GitHub
of Training
system,
and Placement. You would
Docker,
be
and the
covering
CI/CD.
all the topics
Hello,
related into DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of minutes as in
pretty much everything for a beginner.
different
Because I have omitted one thing that is Kubernetes because it's also again a very huge thing to be honest. I kept it in mind, so I have covered it in the overall Git GitHub, Docker, and the CI/CD.
Yeah, because
Give me a couple of minutes as in
pretty much everything for a beginner. Because I have omitted one thing that is Kubernetes because
very great.
Yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm covering
This is Bharath
the
here.
overall
And,
hits it
so you would
talk
be
and the skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah,
related
let's
to
do.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
a
Pretty
couple
much
of
everything for a beginner.
different tools.
I have completed one thing that is Kubernetes, which is yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm covering
This is Bharath
the
here.
overall
And,
hits it
so you would
Docker and
be
the skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah, let's
related to
do.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
a
Pretty
couple
much
of
everything for a beginner.
different tools.
I have completed one thing that is Kubernetes, which is yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm covering
This is Bharath
the
here.
overall
And,
hits it
so you would
Docker
be
and the skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah, let's
related to
do.
DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
a
Pretty
couple
much
of
everything for a beginner.
different tools.
I have completed one thing that is Kubernetes, which is yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm covering
This is Bharath
the
here.
overall
And,
hits it
so you would
Docker and
be
the skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah, let's
related
do.
to DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
a
Pretty
couple
much
of
everything
is
for
there
a
a lot of
beginner.
background noise from
I
my
have
end?
completed one thing that is
and
Kubernetes, which
very
is
great.
yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm covering
This is Bharath
the
here.
overall
And,
hits it
so you would
Docker and
be
the skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah, let's
related
do.
to DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
a
Pretty
couple
much
of
everything
is
for
there
a
a lot of
beginner.
background noise from
I
my
have
end?
completed one thing that is
and
Kubernetes, which
very
is
great.
yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm
Okay,
covering
how do
This
we
is
want to
Bharath
the
go
here.
about
overall
it?
And,
hits it
so you would
Docker and the
be
skills.
covering all the topics
Yeah, let's
related
do.
to DevOps. Yeah, because
Give me a couple of
we
minutes
have
as in
Pretty much
is
everything
there
for
a
a
lot of
beginner.
background noise from
I
my
have
end?
completed one thing that is
actually we are on
Kubernetes, which
live
is yes, that's again a very huge thing to be honest. So everyone finds so I'm
Okay,
covering
how do we want to
the
go about
overall
it?
hits it Docker and the skills. Yeah, let's do.
Give me a couple of
At
minutes
least
as
they'll
in
also know who are you and those things. So that will help the students as well. And I also request you to also give the full in detail description of GDG. So that will help the students of what are the programs and what certifications are they going to get.
certifications as in
Yeah, like the programs which you conduct.
okay.
Yeah, that will help the students as well. And I also request you to also give the full in detail description of GDG. So that will help the students of what are the programs and what certifications are they going to get.
Certifications as in
Yeah, like the programs which you conduct.
Syed, you have been uh, I've got to know that you've done a lot of certifications around the DevOps
So that
related
will
part.
help the students of what are
Yeah.
the
So is
programs
it
and what
particularly in the DevOps side
certifications are they
that
going to
you've
get.
had your certifications on, or
Like the programs which you
So,
conduct.
Syed, you have
I
been
am a Kubernetes. So I have five
uh,
certifications in
I've
Kubernetes,
got to know that
and from Google
you've
Cloud I
done a
have
lot
four
of certifications
certifications,
around the DevOps
So that
related
will
part.
and from AWS I have one in, as a cloud solution architect associate, and yeah, and from GitHub and actions and fundamentals. So yeah,
Where are you from, Syed?
I am based out of from Odisha, Berhampur, but currently working in Bangalore.
Okay. I'll take probably like 10 tops 15 minutes and hand it over to you, Syed. I'll probably hand it back to Sarah or Sir, and then based on that. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't catch your name. I missed it
My name
earlier.
is Bharath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll hand it over back to you so that you can.
Yeah. I had said then, Imran, let us start the session so that the people will start joining. There are more than 100 participants who have already joined. So I think still more will be joining up. So we'll start our session so that it would not be late for Arshad as well as for Imran going forward. So, all the students, today I want to introduce you Mr. Aarshad Devani. He's an established tech speaker and he has just received his United Nations award. I would like everybody to comment in the comment sections to sir for the congratulations for winning his award. And he is one among the top 10 emerging leaders in generative AI as well as in AI, and he has already completed 4 startups and is working on his 5th startup as well. And the most important part is he is the head of Hyderabad for GDG group for both normal GDG and as well as for cloud as well. So I think this will be a very good informative sessions from Arshad to all the students regarding the Google Developers Group. What are the things and what are the future programs which we can arrange and go further for the students for the development. So I request all the students to be active. And if you have any queries, please post your questions so that Arshad can clear your doubts. Thank you, Arshad. Please continue.
Lovely. Thank you for the introduction, sir. I'll take 2 minutes to introduce myself, and post that I'll get onto those things. Uh, I am not going to bore everyone with presentations. So no presentations for this particular call at least, and this broadcast. So I am Aarshad, by the way. I lead Google Developers Group Hyderabad. So Google Developers Group is a small area of community building, which is primarily sponsored by Google, and we do have close to around like 10,000 plus developers, particularly in Hyderabad alone, which are part of the whole community. So I lead the community, and we do conduct a lot of events in and around Hyderabad. So a lot of times we end up in doing workshops at different colleges. Some of the workshops are coming in soon. Hopefully, as part of Reddy as well, we will be having one workshop coming in soon. Uh, so let me throw some limelight in terms of what I do otherwise. So I work as a lead software engineer or senior software engineer for Storable, and that's something which I do on the daytime. Apart from that, I love working around, so I'm very passionate about technology, which basically helps me to keep on tinkering around a lot of different items. So you'll find me always participating in a lot of corporate hackathons. I love working with AI. So I'm a speaker for AI, React, JavaScript, TypeScript, Wasm, WebAssembly, in case if you guys know about it. Uh, so I do talk on all of these topics, and I go all around Hyderabad as well as outside Hyderabad as well to give out a lot of talks and everything all around the place. Uh, Recently, I was awarded the United Nations Observatory Status Award for excellence in AI leadership. So it is recognized. Obviously, as part of that, I received the award from some of the well-known ambassadors from Iceland, Panama, and South Korea. So I was awarded this particular prestigious award, and then as part of that, obviously, I made a lot of connects and everything. So one particular thing about Google Developers Group is you get to network a lot with people, right? So the primary focus of any of the Google developer groups is to ensure that we can collaborate, we can network around. Of course, this also brings in a lot of opportunities because a lot of professionals, people at CXO levels, they do come down to our events as well. So they are always in terms of headhunting, they keep on looking out for people as well. So college enthusiasts who are in the 4th year, it's a good way for you to attend these kind of events which are happening in via GDG particularly, and that helps you to not only network yourself, market about yourself, but then it also sometimes can give very fruitful outcomes wherein you might get hired by a lot of companies. So I've been with GDG for over 10 years now. I started off as a student attendee, continued forward, worked all along the way. I've been a volunteer at a lot of events, then followed by that, uh, good years down the lane, and I'm right now the lead, which definitely means of obviously that in case if you are very much connected to the community, you can be at my place as well at some time. So I think like GDG Hyderabad is particularly for someone who is open. throughout Hyderabad, which basically means it can have students, it can have professionals, it can have non-technical people as well, wherein they can come down, they can understand about all the products. So as part of Google, obviously backed by Google, so we do have a lot of liberty in terms of getting in the top-notch information which is coming in from various angles, which also means that anything new which is coming in, we mostly get to know about it, and that is what we give out as part of our flagship events, right? So we encourage people to come down to events. We have our own community chapter. We'll paste out the link soon as part of the uh, uh, comments, probably pin it out for you guys so that you can check it out as well. But then we do conduct a lot of events. Now GDG on campus is a similar kind of a structure, but particularly associated to a college, right? So wherein you can conduct a lot of events. There are a lot of events which can happen particularly at a college level. That could be workshops coming in from Google experts. We call them as Google developer experts. So that's a different program altogether, where professionals are basically recognized and they are well established into the area where they are experts in, and then they do deliver talks all around India, in some countries as well. So we do have some developer experts who go to various countries to give out talks, right? So, as part of GDG, you are entitled, or you basically get a lot of benefits out of it, wherein you get access to all of these workshops. Sometimes you do get access to internal tools as well for testing it out. I'm pretty much sure everyone knows that Gemini AI has been made available for college students, right? So these are some of the outcomes when there's a GDG on campus within your college. So there is a lead appointed every year. It goes by a thorough regression cycle in terms of interviewing them. I think Saurav is one of those from Reddy, wherein there are at least like 20,000, 30,000 applicants which come in every year, out of which a handful are basically selected, one from each college who basically lead. And then there is definitely their teams which they have as part of their college who aid the main organizer or the lead organizer to work out with a lot of other set of items. And we work closely with the GDG on campus teams as well, because students definitely are a greater part in terms of cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, Delhi. So, if I'm not mistaken, we have close to around 28 city-wise chapters, if I'm not mistaken. And if you actually go ahead and try to bring it down in terms of both GDG as well as GDG Cloud, there are over 96 chapters throughout whole India, right? Which means it's like massive effort in terms of conducting events and doing a lot of things. And Google has always been helpful in terms of giving us the funds for such kind of events, and obviously a lot of other goodies and perks which we get out of these. So that's more about what we generally do. I think I would like to share one particular example as part of GDG as to how things do really help us out as well. So I remember I conversate with a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people over LinkedIn, over phone, various other social media platforms as well. So I think like there have been instances wherein the attendees of such kind of flagship events and everything, they have gone ahead and they have been hired by top-notch companies for good amount of figures in terms of salary as well. So they get hired right out of these kind of events as well. So there are definitely a good amount of success stories wherein people do get hired. The beautiful part about attending such kind of events is that you get to not only know about the latest set of technology, but you learn out of these as well. So workshops, whenever they are conducted, we ensure that you are learning about any of the cloud platforms. Particularly we concentrate on GCP because it's part of the Google ecosystem, and it becomes easier for us to go ahead and give you some liberty, or the students the liberty to go ahead and try it out. And then based on that, you are basically taught everything, right? So you are something which is generally not there in your academics, so you get that industrial exposure as to how the applications are built, how the applications are developed, and how are they deployed at different places to ensure that you can be ready for your job, right? So that's something, that's the main intention of starting off and doing all of these workshops for students. So that's it. I think, like, I just wanted to say, you can be as part of the GDG on campuses, as part of your colleges, and then I'm pretty much sure you'll not be disappointed. There are a lot of events which keep on happening all around the place, and being as part of GDG OC or GDG on campus, we do communicate about such kind of events, wherein you can go ahead and participate as part of all of these events, which in most of the cases you have a certificate for that. So you can utilize the certificate to go ahead and showcase that you have been part of so and so workshops or something of that sort, which gives you a bit of leverage. It gives you a bit of notch in terms of comparison to a person who doesn't attend these kind of events and the workshops, right? So obviously, if I were a recruiter, I would go ahead and I would see that who is actually there understanding all of the things versus a person who is just into academics, right? So there will definitely be a differentiation, and then such kind of workshops actually help you to understand your subjects better, right? We almost all every time we do neglect the maths and everything whenever as part of our engineering and everything, but then see where we are today, right? AI is all math behind the scenes. So we do keep on neglecting our subjects, but then eventually those circle back onto us beyond a particular point. And when you are into workshops and everything, the experts do really teach everything as to how things work out, and also you get to understand your subjects better, and not only that, you learn a good amount of skills. So I encourage everyone to be as part of the GDG on campus, as well as be part of GDG Hyderabad as well, so that you can learn more and you can gain some more skills. That's it. I hand it over to you, Bharat sir.
Thank you so much, Aarshad. Thank you so much for the introduction part, and we would also like to work with you to get our students skilled. So that would be a great opportunity for all the students to learn and skill up themselves, so that they'll reach their ultimate goal of getting a job of whatever they decide to. Thank you so much, and again, I want to congratulate on your award as well. And I'm very thankful for giving us the opportunity for the institution to host. Yes, it is Saurav who has had the credit, but I would also like to thank Google Developers Club for giving us all these opportunities with the student development programs as well. And we also want to say to all the students who are here, we are open to all the other colleges as well to come and join, so that they'll also learn some skill up programs, which is open for the education platform. Thank you so much.
I would just like to say one point. See, being a lead doesn't mean that they are the heads, right? It's more like a team effort, right? So even when I say I'm a lead, it's just for the sake of saying that a person who's accountable for, right? Whenever I'm pretty much sure I have seen that there's a big team as part of your college as well. So definitely Saurabh is the person whom we'll hold accountable for. But then obviously it doesn't mean that the whole team is not working. You cannot clap with a finger, right? You need at least a single hand. And yes, there was a saying that you cannot clap with two hands, but probably Gemini and Nano Banana have showcased, you can clap with your one hand as well. So I would say that when it's not a single person who is there, it's a whole team, and you guys have been doing a fantastic job in terms of conducting this particular event. And then kudos to the whole team who has been doing a lot of events around the college. And definitely I would like to quote one of the sayings from one of my favorite movie series. The dialogue is, help is always given to the people who ask for it at Hogwarts, right? So I would say that whenever you want something, please feel free to reach out, and we'll make sure that we are able to help you out and conduct workshops and events all around.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure having you.
Hi, good evening, sir. Saurav this side. Thank you so much for coming up, sir. I didn't expected that you would be having free time for us. but it's a great opportunity to uphold the meeting with you. We are also glad, and I hope that we meet soon on the DevFest, which is going to be hosted on 12th of October, right?
I should be canvassing about it, so let me tell everyone. So, sorry, I missed out on points. I should have probably kept my notepad along with me. But yeah, GDG basically has two big flagship events which happen throughout the year. One is Cloud Community Days, which happened in the month of July. It particularly concentrates on the cloud related aspects, and then we do have DevFest, which is short for Developers Fest. It's happening on 12th of October. The tickets are already done, but we still have some places where we can accommodate more people. Uh, so at part of DevFest, we cover a lot of different areas like mobile app development. You have cloud, you have AI, you have Web3 this time as well. We are working out with Web3 folks as well. So you get to learn. These are kind of professional workshops which are being taken by the best in class developers, or I should say experts from Hyderabad. We also have some Googlers also who are going to take up some of the workshops and sessions. So as part of DevFest, we are going to do a lot of workshops. There'll be a lot of talks which will educate you with a lot of new things which are happening in and which will be coming in soon as well. So do make sure, in case if you have got the ticket, great. See you at DevFest. Meet me. I'll be there all around the whole day. And in case if you have not bought your tickets, then go ahead, make sure you are there as part of the wait list, because we always run full. So let me tell you something. Cloud Community Days, we were sold out in under 24 hours. GDG DevFest, we were sold under 4 days, right? And DevFest is way more bigger, so we are having more than 1,500 people who are going to be there as part of the event. It's going to be huge. It's going to be there at Novotel. Uh, as I should not be marketing this out a lot, but one of the good benefits about attending such kind of events is you get some exclusive goodies, right, which is given out to all the attendees and everyone. So I think like the outcome of a lot of times a lot of students do come down to such kind of events just in search of goodies, but DevFest is definitely one of those areas where you get in a lot of goodies as well. So yes, Saurav, you'll be there, I know that. So we'll catch up there.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to meet you very soon. Thank you, sir.
All right.
So we'll move the session with Imran.
Thank you, Aarshad. Now we'll go to the main session of DevOps, where I would like to introduce you today's speaker, who is going to give you the session. That is Syed Imran. Right now, he's working as a DevOps engineer at Convent, and he has already completed 14 certifications, professional certifications across Google Cloud, AWS, and Kubernetes. Back in 2002, he played a very key role in reviving the Google's Developer Student Club at NIST, that is National Institute of Science and Technology, which is a university right now, which continues today as GDG on campus. Imran has actively mentored students, professionals, delivered talks, writing articles, and leading training programs in cloud and DevOps. Today, he is going to give you basic overview about DevOps as for beginners, what is required. So I would like all the students to go through the session. If you have any doubts or if you want to ask anything, the comment box is always open so that you can comment. But we might be restricting it for some time so that we'll slowly open up whenever Imran needs it.
Yep. Uh, I hope I'm audible right now.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for the warm welcome, and thank you so much for giving me this platform to deliver my not just my technical knowledge but also my experience with the GDG on campus. So, as I've been asked to, share a bit of my experience about the GDG on campus that I kind of revived in my college, back in my college days. So the very fact that I was not aware of this program was through LinkedIn itself. I was able to figure out that something as such exists as college level, because most of the community that are out there are usually for professionals. But I definitely was seeking something that was, driving students into the mainstream of the profession, specifically in DevOps and cloud. So I was then made aware of this very program, community that exists for college students. And to my luck, I did figure out that it was there in my college, but due to inactivity, it was kind of made, kind of a shutdown it was. So in 2022, me with my colleague Roshan, so we, kind of took the initiative and drove the entire, made that revival of the community. Earlier it was Google Developer Student Club. Now it has been renamed to the GDG on campus for us. Now just the name convention has changed. Everything that has been the part of the club, the activities, the workshops, and the programs that happen, these are completely the same. So, as speaking of my experience, uh, of course, the learning is something that is, there is no limit to that. The amount of things that I've learned, not just technical, but also involving in community activities, talking with people, understanding their, their hurdles of learning, and making them, educated and all those stuff. So there is a lot of things that goes just beyond learning about technical experience. It was more of a I would say personality development that I had when I went through the entire program. And I believe this is something that every student must be enrolled into. So it's completely gives a personality change that needs to be done, as part of the transition that happens when a person leaves the college life and joins the professional life. So that sort of communicate, the ability to communicate with the other person and being able to make them understand your mindset of how you think, how you build. So that is something I believe a very crucial part of this video on campus. So yeah, it's just I like in my professional life. It's just been 2 years. I still have my connection with the students of my college. I still have an overview of what's going on with the CDG on campus at least. In fact, very recently I gave a very small talk at my college. So yeah, so I would say all the students who are currently watching this live stream and uh, pretty much, I believe, new to this very platform. I would like those guys to be very much involved in all the activities. I believe recently there would be some study jam that would be happening. So maybe Sora would be reaching out. I believe that is something, if I'm not wrong. So they do have this, for each tool of Google Cloud. In fact, for Google Cloud itself, and they organize these events. And the major driving for me, it was the goodies, of course, as I already mentioned. There is a lot of goodies when we come about, this digital campus, on campus, and DevFest, and all the events that happen. So that was again something that drive, but eventually the value lies on the learning that you make when you complete the tasks, right? So again, I would encourage students to please be part of this. Next, do participate in the events and the workshops and all the events that happen around you and the city, no matter where you are, even in your student life and even in your professional life. So that is pretty much I would about to say about the GD on campus and my personal experience throughout my college and personal life. Right. So right, just let's just get started with the very thing that we have joined here. Let me just share my screen for that. Just let me know once you're able to see it. Yeah, cool. So yeah, so that's let me okay. Right. So the whole session is about DevOps and cloud now. So so this webinar is not just about the the guide to DevOps. It's more about what all things have currently currently the market expects from a fresher. The the expectations have been kept to a level so high that people are not even aware of. So and the market is very, I would say, specific about what it needs from a fresher. Okay. So this would be, although a technical webinar, but eventually you would also be aware of what things are being, expected from a fresher when he or she joins a company, right? So let's get started with this very webinar, From Code to Cloud, a beginner's guide to DevOps. So in this very first slide, you would be able to see that towards the left of the screen, uh, right over here, it's the guy who codes, creates the application, starts with the coding, and towards the right, if you see the server where the the application runs. So what joins them is basically the DevOps, right? The this the reason of this infinite symbol of DevOps is it is because of continuous process. It never stops, right? It keeps going on and on, and we'll see more about it in the upcoming slides in the presentation. Before getting started, a bit about me. I am Syed Imran, a DevOps engineer at Convin.ai, and I'm a Qstronaut. So for the ones who don't know, Qstronaut is a person who basically has cleared all the Kubernetes certification, the 5 certifications. Apart from that, I have 4 certifications from Google Cloud and a total of 13 active certifications from across the 3 clouds. Right. So this would be the agenda of the very webinar. We'll go about what and why of DevOps, like what exactly it is and why even we need it. And we'll get started with the tools and technologies that revolve around the DevOps practices, and we'll see the evolution of infrastructure. This is a very high level, I would say, detail about what exactly is DevOps and from where it came, and we'll see about what is virtualization and what is containerization. We'll deep dive into Docker, one of the very known containerization service. We'll have a very overview of cloud services and the different type of service models that a cloud provides. And we also have a very good demo of the entire DevOps process, what involves in it, and how things actually happen in real life production in companies. Right. So let's just get started this. So a lot of people have this confusion that when someone talks about DevOps, they mean that it's just a list of tools that they need to learn and they just need to integrate them. I believe it's a mindset that's because again people just keep posting about the tools that they have built something using these certain tools in DevOps, but I'm not saying they're wrong. But the concept of DevOps is basically a mindset. It's a practice. I would say it's a solution basically that combines the software development with the IT operations. Software development, again, I believe I would say, maybe you guys are must be learning about in a curriculum itself, the SDLC process. If not, then definitely in future you'll be learning about what exactly is software SDLC and software development lifecycle. In the gist, I would say the very starting point of building an application, the planning stuff and all the things that happen around it. It's not just that you just write a code and just deploy it and get the customers. So there's a whole lot of process that needs to happen before the even application is starting to build. And IT operations is basically once the application is built, what happens with that after it needs to face the customer. So those are operations, those are practices that are under the deployment part, where once the developer has built its code, that is what IT operations basically handles, right? And DevOps is basically what sits between the two, as I showed in the very first slide of the presentation, right? There was a developer toward the left of the slide who was building, coding the application, and the right side icon showed the actual place where I would say the destination of the application where it's supposed to run, right? So DevOps is something it sits between them. It takes the responsibility a bit from developer, a bit from the production side, and solves their main problem. So what used to happen before DevOps? If DevOps is something which is seen termed very newly. It's not, I would say, newly. It's been a decade or so. The term has been hyped up. But what used to happen before that? So as mentioned, just because there was no communication between what happened at the one who developed the application and one who made the application run on the production server. So there used to be a lot of manual deployments, and the application would have been shared through the zip files, or maybe at those time using pen drives. The application was loaded into one pen drive, and it was again plugged into a different device, and it would have been run over there. So it was a lot of manual steps, and of course, manual steps implies there would be a lot of human errors and delays and frustrations among the whole group of the software developers who are basically building and shipping the application. And what happened after DevOps was basically the entire process was automated. Of course, automation implies there is no human intervention, and of course, it will be faster and much more reliable process because human error is something completely eliminated from the cycle. So if you see, this is again an image generated from Nano Banana, if I'm not wrong, but definitely generated from Gemini. So the image itself shows that you can see, right, there's a lot of chaos happening among the engineers, that there is downtime again in the application. There's a lot of manual stuff happening, complete chaos because DevOps is not in the whole process of releasing and handling the application. But after DevOps, complete setup was there, process was followed, what needs to be done and in what ways. Entire automation was into the system. So we'll deep dive into each aspect of the DevOps lifecycle, what happens and when and how it goes. Definitely. Uh, so again, this image is generated from Gemini itself. It practically shows the coolness of the software group of engineers who are just just they sit and these things happen live in the entire automated process. Something similar we would definitely see at the end of this session. Yes. Nice. So coming to the very first concept, I would say, of DevOps is the version control. Okay. So I believe a lot of you must have also heard about Git and GitHub. So as a student, I believe it was for me when I was in, not sure again, third year maybe. I was made aware of this very thing. Pretty much pretty late for me. I definitely would say about that. But again, given introduction, it's a most widely used version control system that helps developers track changes in their code, collaborate with others, and maintain a history of every modification. So it's basically like the time machine of your code. The only thing that you cannot do is delete the history, unlike you guys do. Uh, Sorry, just going off topic. So as I mentioned, time machine for your code. So basically, you can maintain whatever things happen with your code, right? At every point, you make a change in the application. Suppose you're developing an application, right? And the application is running in production currently, and you made some changes and you deployed it again. Okay. But you found that the application was breaking. So it would be Git that would be very helpful to revert the code back to the point where it was working. So that's just I would say that Git would be very helpful, for handling your this application and stuff. We'll see the detail of it, of how Git works and what all things we can do with them. And Git is one of the software that comes from the concept of this version control. There are multiple out there, but Git being one of the very most used and famous one, hence I've taken Git for this example. The version control system comes in different types: local, centralized, and distributed. So what are these three? So the local VCS again stands for version control system. It keeps version on a single machine, which limits collaboration. So this type of VCS, when you use, it is limited to your own machine. It is limited to your own personal development. You cannot collaborate with other persons and other developers. Centralized VCS is a central server to store all provisions, but creates a single point of failure. For the second type, the centralized one, again, it is at a centralized server where people, collaborate over there. But again, because it is located at a single point, suppose a single person would make some changes and it can break the system. So that is what single point of failure implies. Okay, SPOA. Coming to the distributed, the Git is exactly distributed VCS. It provides each developer with a full copy of the repository, enabling offline work and faster collaboration. So distributed in the sense, the copy of each code, each change that you make will be there with all the developers that you're working with. They will be easily able to see that what changes you had made, and you also will be able to see what changes they have made in their commits. And so that's how Git works. It collaborates with the student, the entire developer ecosystem, and it has made the life of developers very easier than what they used to do. And just giving a bit of the history of Git. Git was founded by again Linus Torvalds, who is the founder again of Linux systems, right? So Linux, he basically created Git to manage his project of Linux. So again, a very great person for that, and it's a blessing for us and all the developers and DevOps engineers out there, right? So that was pretty much the I would say overall overview of Git. And again, it's a very basic one. People definitely can go further and learn more about it. The reason I'm saying this is to give you, the background knowledge of what happens in a DevOps lifecycle and what all things a DevOps engineer needs to go through. Okay, so let's just yeah. Yeah. So before moving forward, so with the GitHub, let's see a bit about Git, and let's just move this to the Okay. So this is again, if the people for the people who don't know, this is a IDE. I mean, we can say a text editor maybe. To I will show you the demo of what. Let me- okay, maybe I need to share it. Right. There is this wonderful cheat sheet from GitHub itself. I would definitely share the link with the chat. Or it's in the description of the video later of this. In this cheat sheet itself, you'll be able to get pretty much all the commands that you need to use Git and manage your own project and also. So this is from GitHub itself. You can see there's a lot of the basic commands that you need to configure any Git repository to build any projects, right? We'll see some of them right now itself. So the very startup is to basically configure your username and email ID, and rest of the stuff is again optional, but this is something you need to you know configure it anyhow. For downloading Git itself, there are links over here. You can definitely go through the links and download Git in your system maybe. And yeah, so let's get started with the very first command. That's the git init command. So here is an empty folder completely that I have opened in VS Code. If I can show you, there is absolutely no content as such here. The moment I run, so I have already installed Git in my machine. So that is something I'm already with. And moving forward. So if you see, I have run the command git init. It basically asks me to configure some things and also tells me that initialized empty Git repository. So now my current folder is considered as a Git, Git repository in my local. So if I can show you, there is a .git folder that has come up, which was not there earlier. Well, after the git init command, I see there is a .git folder in my local. So this very .git folder is responsible for handling each and every changes that you make in your code, each and every commit or maybe changes that you make in the code, right? So let's just get started. Yes, if you can see, there is that. Yeah. Let's run this command as I said. Right. So, right, let's go back to the cheat sheet and let's see what we can do further here. Right. So, as I mentioned, Git is a tool that will help you to, maintain the history of your code changes that you make for an application. What differentiates Git from GitHub is GitHub is basically a platform built on Git that is used to store your code base in a in a server, so that you can make your changes in your local. And once you're done with the changes, and you can basically push it to GitHub so that your code stays in a platform that is managed you again using Git itself. right? So let's just do one thing. For the people who don't have a GitHub account, you can just go to github.com and pretty much if you this is again my GitHub account itself. You can very easily create a GitHub account. It's pretty much very easy and of course free of cost again, right? So you can have, once it's created in your account and you land on a profile, you can just directly go to the repositories. Repositories basically means that I mean the code base that you have your application, the code of the application basically stays here in the repository. Right. So let's just create a new repository and I'll give right. So I have named the repository as Git MREM demo, and I just pretty much leave everything as default, and I just leave the repository. So as I mentioned, right, GitHub is basically a platform where you can maintain your uh, application code and the commits that you make in your local and store it in the GitHub. So if you can see, it has asked me to run a couple of things here. Quick setup if you have done this kind of thing before. And you can see you can invite collaborators and the other developers or maybe your friends who are working on a given project you need to build, and you can invite them as collaborating developer in your Git repo. So these are the sort of things. If it has asked me basically if I've already in your local, maybe you can just have this and get started with, right? Okay. Even before, so let's just clone this repo itself. Yes, it's a public repo. So basically, it's very easy to again go with these things. You just copy the URL mentioned over here. You can just copy it right away. And okay, we do have this. So the command to clone the repo is again self-explanatory. Git clone and just clone the repo. So gives me a warning you appear to have cloned an MCF. That's perfectly fine. Absolutely no issues with that. So if you see, repo folder has been created now. Git MRE and repo demo. That's the same name as the repo here itself, right? And let's go into that folder. If you see, there is absolutely nothing apart from the .git folder. As I mentioned, .git is the folder that basically monitors your entire work that you do, the changes that you make. It pretty much monitors everything that happens in your code base. So let's just let's just create some random text files. Just some random text and all this stuff. Okay, so again, coming back to the concept of Git. So here I have a sample repo with me. I have created a file, right? And if I want Git to track the changes that I made in this file, what I need to do is I need to I need to move this sample file to the staging area. So basically, there are three areas in your, I would say, the Git repository, the workspace. Currently, wherever we are making the code changes, right? That's the workspace that we have, the current working directory. Second is the staging area. So the changes that you have made, if you think maybe you are supposed to make some other changes and you're not very sure about what needs to be done with that, remove the files that have been changed to that particular. Again, it's something I would say logical. As such, we don't segregate things. It's something that gets completely handled, and we move this sample. I mean, the code base that we have made changes to staging area. How we do that is basically to run git add the file name that we have changed, right? So if you see, and I run git status command, it has now been able to track the changes that there is a new file and it's in the staging area because it's changes should be committed, right? So once you move the code base to staging area, you have added all the changes that you have made, you make a commit. Commit is basically defines the changes that you have made for a given instance of, I would say, a time or maybe the work that you have done. That is considered as a commit. Basically, it's a checkpoint to the changes that you have made in the entire Git repo. Okay? So how do we again move from the next stage, that is the commit area? Basically, we commit with a message. We do that with the -n, right? And I would say initial commit. If you can see, the one file change, 3 insertions. So basically 3 lines of code. As I mentioned, right, each and every detail that you have made change is being now tracked by Git. So if you can see here, create more. So that's basically the output that happens when you commit. So if there have been a lot of files and a lot of changes that would have been made, so the output would have been similar. And now if we check the Git status, right? Nothing to commit, work tree free. So the currently working tree free is basically a work tree. Once you move from a work tree to the staging area, it shows that something is there in the staging area. And once you commit, so the moment you make a commit, it's you check point to the changes that you have made for a particular, I would say, number of files. Okay, so the commit has been made. So does that mean my code is there in GitHub? No. So up till now, the changes that I've made, the things that I've done in the command, the state, the adding command file to the staging area, then making the commits. These are all my local changes. In order to move these changes to the files that I've made to GitHub or central, distributed VCS system, I need to push this entire code to GitHub. So that my peer collaborators who are working in this very project are able to see what all changes I have made. So if you see, if I can go back and just refresh the page, there would be as such nothing changed over here. But if I make a push here, you see, and then it has pushed the changes to the repository. And if we come back here and reload the page, we can see the sample.txt file over here. The changes that I've made is very like now it's right. So that is how the project starts. You basically create a repository, you have it in your local, you invite collaborators, you make your own changes, commit your own changes when people check your commits and what all changes you have made, right? In case things break, you fall back to the commit that was working. So there is a lot of stuff that happens, right? And again, not going much very deeper into it because it has a lot of things that needs to be done. I would definitely just share this cheat sheet with you, which pretty much handles everything that you need to know in order to use Git in your project and get the things done, right? So we pretty much saw the Git commit, Git status, add, reset is basically falling back to a commit from the current wherever you are. So the concept, I missed one thing, the branch. So what branch serve the purpose in Grid is basically, suppose you have an application running, but you want to introduce a new change which you might fear may break the application. So in that case, what you do is you create a copy of your code, aligned with that. But in future, if things work, you want the changes that you have made to be there in the main branch. So branch is basically like maintaining copying of your work, but again, changes specific to that very purpose. Isolating works in, if you see here, isolating work in branches, changing context and integrating changes. So instead of directly making changes in the main branch, you create a separate copy of your code, make your changes, see if the things work. If things work, you just merge the branch in order to avoid the conflict that may happen if you directly make changes in a single branch that is running live. Okay. So again, there are a lot of things that we can go through. We can see the logs of messages, what has happened. I can run the git log command. You can see the changes I have made, right? It clearly shows. In case if you had multiple developers out there here, right? The every detail of what has been done in the entire work history would be easily able to figure out things, right? So yeah, that's a very just about Git, and yeah. Questions now, if we have something we can definitely take on later of the demo. So as in respect of time, I'll just skip this introductory part of GitHub, and yeah, going back to GitHub. That's so the way Git is a time machine for your code base. GitHub is basically Google Drive for your code. The reason I'm giving reference is basically you to get an understanding of what is being used for what exactly, what purpose does this serve, right? GitHub is a cloud-based platform built around Git, as I already mentioned, for hosting the applications that you build, the code that you have written for the application. Basically, that's what a repository defines, and make collaborations with other developers, the peer project, your peers, and build something. It has a lot of integration that can be done. We'll see, very soon after in this demo itself. It integrates with CI/CD pipelines and a lot of other stuffs that you may, come in future to know about, right? So yeah, that was pretty much about GitHub and Dice. So coming back to the webinar of the flow of agenda, evolution of infrastructure. So if how things used to happen when there was no cloud computing in the first place, right? Let's just recall things what exactly used to happen. So the whole point of why cloud came in the first place was to ha- take up the responsibility of scalability. So when there is a lot of downloads happen for a given application, so very example I would say Flipkart, the big billion days, right? So they have a very huge crowd that shows up on their platform. If you have been scrolling the Flipkart and the very first day of the big billion days sale, you would have seen the error that would come 500 influence server error if you have faced so. So that's came because the amount of traffic that was expected, it went beyond that, and the servers were not able to handle that. That was the primary reason. So in the first place, to move the workloads from their own server to cloud, right? So the management part of the server, what needs to be done with the server. So if I can give you the example of your own personal laptop, right? It has a dedicated RAM, it has a dedicated CPU, maybe a GPU, it has its own motherboard, and all those stuff, that the wiring, the networking, a lot of things that happen for your laptop to work, right? The same used to happen when cloud computing was not even a thing in the first place. People used to manage those very mainframe servers. They used to connect the wires and a lot of things that used to happen to even get the server started, and deploying an application was even the second, I would say, second most important thing. The first most important thing was to even build a server and make the connectivity with the software. Okay. So there is this diagram from IBM I have pasted over here. The evolution of infrastructure that's happened. At the very first stage, the company used to have its own servers. Basically, that is what is called as a data center. You run thousands and hundreds and thousands of servers interconnected over network, and the storage and all those stuff used to be there in a dedicated server rooms for each respective company. They used to invest a lot in that, and not just setting up. Also, the maintenance was something very that needs to be taken care of, right? And eventually, what happened? They saw a lot of behind work that people need to do. The main reason of company runs is basically to deliver that product. So what they saw was their most of their expenses and most of their management part was running on handling these servers. So what they did was collaborated with other co-companies and you know kind of shared their workloads, had their uh, responsibilities divided into multiple companies. So that is what co-location basically shows here. Next, the evolution happened to server. So what server basically did was to, the separation that servers did was, I mean, again, all of them are basically running servers, but the server in the middle that is mentioned as a diagram was a dedicated layer of what needs to be present, right? And right, so the investment again, the responsibility decreased a bit, but again, it was outsourced to the companies who are basically managing the server. Instead of the team, the company itself managing, they were outsourced to a secondary company who are responsible uh, for managing the server. So completely moved the parts, I mean, outsourced as it mentioned over here. Then came the the revolutionizing thing, the virtualization. So what happened with virtualization was it was an attempt. I would not say this attempt was definitely a success, of course, but what it did basically was to run multiple servers on a given hardware. Instead of running each server with a dedicated hardware, the virtualization enabled to run servers on multiple servers on a given set of hardware. Instead of running, so if I give you an example, instead of running just one Windows as operating system in your laptop, you would have been able to run multiple systems parallelly in your very laptop. So that's what virtualization did, right? I'm just giving a gist of it. So if you can want to dive deeper, definitely you can connect with me. I would love to share more about it. And at that very point, the cloud computing, it kicked in, and I believe then the services, the Amazon Web Service and Google Cloud and other services came into action, and they started to rent these servers to the companies who want to run their application. So at the very point of virtualization, what happened was the responsibility of the businesses to maintain these services completely went off. So their expenditure and the manforce that requires for the servers to maintain it went off completely, right? And they were only concerned with the part of running their application. The code, they used to move the code into the dedicated server that were allocated from the cloud computing company. And they used to install the dependencies on the systems and made the application run. But again, it's some came, so the level of, you know, maintenance decreased for the businesses to run their application, but they did had some responsibilities of maintaining the dependencies with the code, right? So eventually the virtualization again, got an great evolution into containerization. Uh, Even before jumping into that, let's see a bit more about virtualization. It was a technology that allowed, as mentioned, run multiple virtual instances on an operating system or server on a given single physical machine. And this very virtualization, helped in a lot of things eventually. But again, it came with a lot of its own complications and complexities that people saw, and which was completely overcome by centralization. So this is I would say, a very uh, overview of what exactly virtualization is. You have a single hardware of, the machines, the RAM, the CPU, the motherboard, and all those. So there's one single hardware. You have a single operating system that is running on your system. Maybe if you consider your own laptop, consider as the physical hardware that are attached in your system as the server hardware. Host OS is your Windows. So I'm basically comparing if you were to run multiple the operating systems, multiple servers on your own computer. So consider the host OS as your Windows laptop. Hypervisor is an abstract layer which basically enables virtualization. So that's the key point of how virtualization works. So it abstracts away what is exactly running behind on the hardware and gives an interface to run multiple virtual servers on a given single physical hardware, which is running a host OS again. If you see, there are multiple guest OS on this very single hardware. So each guest OS again needs to be, has its own libraries respective to the application that is running, right? So the whole point of virtualization was to basically run multiple servers, and each server would run their own, set of services, and applications, right? So each guest OS is basically a server of its own. It has its own libraries, own dependencies. Suppose there is a Python application, there is a database, and maybe there are other couple of things that are required to be run for the application to work. So each of the dependent application, right, the database, the backend server, or maybe there is a front end running, each of them would be running in a different OS with their own, libraries. Suppose there's an application that is running in Python, the backend application, right? It was supposed to be running in a uh, guest OS with all the libraries of Python installed and the application code over there. Similarly, for database, there would be different guest OS and its own. Suppose it's a Postgres then. The Postgres would be running in a different guest OS, and the backend would be communicating with the database to serve to front end. So that's how virtualization came into existence, and people started to adopt. But if you notice, if it's a server that I say, so it would take the same time to come up the time it takes for your laptop to boot, right? It's around at least a minute, 2 minutes, or maybe it's beyond that, depending upon the hardware that you use. So there is a lot of time involved, a lot of processes involved when you start a complete operating system, right? It's not just your guest OS. You need to set up a complete server hardware, then the host OS, then comes a hypervisor that abstracts away the complexities of the host OS, and it gives an interface to install guest OS. So installing a guest OS and making it run is again a lot of work that needs to be done, right? So I hope you can understand a lot of the amount of time it would have been taken to spin up a new guest OS to run to make a application work. So although virtualization solved a very important, I would say, hurdle of running multiple servers in a single hardware, but it came with its own, you know, uh, cons that it requires a lot of stuff that needs to be done in order to make the server run. So then the final evolution that happened was containerization. So what containerization did was it pretty much eliminated the very startup time that required a lot of effort of installing a guest OS and installing the dependencies and the files and that you need to run, right? It packaged the entire application with the dependencies into a single lightweight unit called a container. So so as I mentioned, right? So we'll see the architecture diagram of a containerization. What is containerization exactly? So if you compare with the virtualization concept, there was this hardware, the infrastructure is the same. There was an operating system, the host operating system. And instead of hypervisor, here we have container engine. So this container engine is basically responsible for giving an interface to the containers to run. So it pretty much does a similar thing what hypervisor did, like abstracting away the complexities of the operating system where the application is running. But instead of installing a guest OS over here, container engine is responsible basically to share the resources of operating system, the main kernel. If you guys have operating system as your subject, you guys will definitely know about what's a kernel. Again, not going over there to in this bit of time. So container engine was the main function of container engine was to share the kernel, the heart of the operating system. Instead of launching each respective operating system for an application, container engine was able to dedicate the sharing of kernels from the host operating system to the applications that are supposed to be running. Right? I get it. It's a pretty uh, overview of what I'm saying. There's a lot of things behind the scene. Again, time is something I would say would be restricting me to go deeper into that. So if we just compare the virtualization and containerization, we can see in case of virtualization, we had to run guest operating system for each and every application that we had to run. We need to install their libraries, their own respective dependencies, a lot of uh, again work that needs to be done. But Constant Engine was something able to do fix that. No need of any guest OS. It's pretty much partitioned the differentiated the application just on basis of packaging them with their own dependencies, and it just get the magic. Okay, right? So yeah, I definitely know that there will be a lot of things, as in to know about it. There's a lot of things to even take in the first place. But the main reason I'm driving this entire thing is to uh, get you the core concepts, at least know about them, not to be a master definitely, but just know what happened with things from past till date, right? Because tool is something that will keep changing, but the concept remains the same. What happens and why we are using this particular tool. I believe once you know that, you're definitely able to learn any tool without any issues and will just be master of it. Okay, that's the pretty much reason I am just showing you the evolution of what exactly happened and where are we right now, right? And yeah, and again to mention a very important thing I forgot to mention was even before getting in started into DevOps and cloud, you need to be having a very good hands-on on with Linux as your operating system, and you must be very well versed in the commands that are there, the CLI that you need to use, right? And the networking concept, you guys must have networking as part of the curriculum. That's very much heart and soul of DevOps, Linux and networking. So that is something I have not included, as I pretty much believe it is part of the curriculum. So that is something, again, the foundation of getting started with DevOps and cloud, right? So only then you will understand what is kernel and how container engine is able to isolate processes and share kernel with the application, right? And yeah, again, skipping the overview because in this bit of time, there's a lot of things waiting for us in the future right now, right? So that was pretty much about virtualization and containerization. Moving forwards, Docker, right? So I believe pretty much many of you guys must have heard about Docker, the de facto container tool, right? There are a lot of other containerization tools out there, even like many of them open source and a lot of their own features. But Docker was something that came first as a it's just pretty much like you say when people, instead of asking, so you'll give an example, right? At the tea shop, instead of asking for biscuit, you ask it for Parle-G, even if it's not a Parle-G. So that's how Docker is. So there are multiple other alternatives of Docker, but Docker is something that is, when you say container, I say Docker. I mean, people say Docker. That's how relevant Docker is in container world. So it's an open source platform that simplifies the process of building, running, and managing containers. It allows developers to package application along with the dependency, as I already mentioned. The point of using containerization was to package the dependency with the application and make it run, right? So that's what Docker does, like other container tools. And it has become a standard for building and running containers. Is pretty much the heart and soul again of this very containerization world, right? We'll see a bit about Docker right now itself. And before jumping into the very small demo of Docker, we'll see what are the components of Docker. Okay. So there is this Docker file which pretty much defines, the way your application, the dependencies must be present, what all runtime. Suppose you're running an Python application, so you need to mention that there needs to be Python present in the container. There needs to be the dependencies, the libraries that you use will be there in the container, and your application code. So the Docker file is the file that basically contains the set of instructions that needs to be performed when you package a container, build a container. Image is basically the snapshot. The once you build a container, right, output is basically an image. So it is the package that we mentioned about, right? The package of dependencies, yeah, and their code is the image. Container here, so people keep interchanging the usage of word image and container in containerization, but there's clear the only differentiation between the two is that container is a runtime instance. Like if you take the image and run it, that particular instance is called as a container. Container is a runtime of the Docker. That's it. Pretty simple. And once you build these images, right, you have packaged your application with your code. You're supposed to push that. If you're the way Git is, you keep your code made. I mean, the code base in GitHub. Same way for containers, we have container registries. right? Once you build your application, you have created on your container. You move this container to a container registry to store it. Okay. So this was the gist of the basic components of Docker: the Docker file, the image, the container, and the container registry. Right. So let's get a bit into hands-on right in a way. So there is this sample application that I have here. Again, for a pretty different use case, but it definitely contains what we need here. So there is this application, Movieverse app. Uh, Let me just show it in my local first, what this application does. Right. So this is the Moviesverse app. I have the repo link. I'll definitely share it with you so that you can also run it in your local. So the backend is built using Python and the front end is on React, if I'm not wrong. Okay. It's been quite a while. I have not used this. Hope this works. Right. So I'll just run it my local, like what this application does. Let's just run the backend first. The backend is there, and the front is also live. Let's just open this. So it's a very sample application with this displays basically the movies, Bollywood and maybe from Hollywood as well. It's a very sample application that I have here with you. And uh, just give me a second. Sorry, I wasn't good. Sorry. Right. So I was saying that the application that we have here is the Movieverse application. which has the backend in Python and the front end in React.js, right? And it's pretty much basically, if I can reload. Oh, it's I've stopped it. No. So here's the front end, here's the back end. If I just show you, yeah, that's the sample application that we have here. It's pretty much a very simple movie display, maybe something like that. Information like IMDb basically. So the data that I have is from the API called TMDB API, which you can also use to build similar applications again, right? And this happens to be the code base for the same. I can it's completely open and in public. I'll share you the link to the same so that also you can get a reference. And we'll use the sample application to show the entire DevOps lifecycle, what exactly happens, how things go from code to cloud, the whole the point of having this webinar from code to cloud, how what happens and how it happens. So we'll be using Google Cloud to have this entire DevOps lifecycle, right? So once you have the application ready, you have built your Docker image, and you want to deploy it. There are a lot of offerings out there which you can use. Out of them, what we'll be using is Cloud Run. So Cloud Run is a service from Google Cloud, my personal favorite, I would say. So that is used to run containers on scale without even managing the underlying infrastructure. If you remember the containerization, right? If I can go back. Okay. So instead, you need not need to be managing this infrastructure, this operating system, this container engine. You just need to give your application and binary, which is basically the container itself, right? You need to just submit your container to them, and they'll make sure it is running with at most millions of requests per second scale. So you need not to be worried about the scale of the application. You just need to give them the container that you need to make run. So that is the what Cloud Run does. Okay. Uh, okay. So let's get back to where we were. So this is the application code that we have in Git. Just giving an overview. Maybe multiple developers have created this application. They have collaborated and they have made the changes. Now it's time to go live on production. Let's make it to the public. Okay. So this is the again console of Google Cloud. So the overview of this is something I would be skipping because again in the split of time there's a lot of things that I need to be going through right now. Okay, I have already deployed this movie, the backend of the application. Okay, there's this movie backend running. If I can click on this, okay, this is the endpoint to the backend service. I have used Fast API. So this is the backend of the application that we have. It has this following, URLs and endpoint something the data is fetched from. Okay. So let's just close this first. So if you see the configuration of this, right, there's a lot of things over here. I just want to ignore them for now. So what I have done is basically linked this entire repository with Cloud Run. Okay. So whenever, okay, even before jumping into what I have done, what happens in DevOps is the developer keeps making changes to the Git repository. The automation that happens is basically to move the code to the production. There's a lot of steps that happen in midway, like the testing of the code, the code security scans, and once the image is built, the security scan of the image, a lot of other stuff that happens before the code is moved to cloud. Okay. So So, okay, this is about the cloud run that I said. And so there are a lot of things that I mentioned, right? That happen, the prerequisites from moving the application from code to cloud is basically the responsibility of the CI/CD pipeline that is stitches the entire DevOps workflows. Okay. Right from the developer committing code to the GitHub, moving from there to the deployment of the application, all the intermediate steps that comes in, which takes part in the deploying of the application, is the CI/CD pattern or the workflow. It stitches together the code, build, test, and the deployment. CI stands for continuous integration, right? The process that I mentioned, right? The code scan, the image, the building of the image, the security scans of the entire application. This is the part of continuous CI part of the CI/CD. Okay. Once the CI is successful, we move to the CD part, which is the continuous delivery or deployment. So once the application is built and all the prerequisites are done of the scanning and the build is successful, the the image now is supposed to be deployed onto the destination server. It can be pretty much anything. Maybe for now it is Cloud Run. It can be a production server and a computer instance, or maybe Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So that is the responsibility of the CI/CD to move the code from the repository to the destination server or the deployment. Okay. So for that, I have used Cloud Run. And what I did was I connected this, created one service as movie backend and connected this service with this repo, that whenever a commit or change is made to this repo, a developer is committing something, you take the code, make the build, and deploy to the server. I am skipping about the tests and the scans that happen, because I think it will take a lot of time. So we'll see in live action what happens. As I have only configured the backend, now I will be configuring the front end. So you'll be able to see what things I did as part of having this setup for the CI/CD process. Okay. So the backend is live working right now. So what we'll do is connect the repository to deploy front end with the CI/CD pipeline. Okay. So let's just connect the repo. So there are a lot of options for me. So I'll be selecting the continuous deploy from a repository. Okay. So as I mentioned, right, the image will be built. So let me just show it in my local first how things happen here. So I'll just go to backend that is already running, and this is the Docker file. This is the skeleton of the image, the Docker image. So you mentioned the base image. You need to have a existing image in order to build one. Okay, it's again something I would say to make it much more simpler. You can create your own images as well. That is what we'll be doing with. So I'm just using a runtime of Python. Hence, I have mentioned the Python 3.12 version. And in the from, this is basically called as directive in Docker and container system, maybe. So I'm using a Python version 3.12 and declaring a working directory and copying the requirement txt file, which pretty much contains the requirements, the Python dependencies that I need for my application. And then I'm installing the dependencies and just deleting the file. Then I'm copying the whole code that is there in my app folder to my current directory inside the container. And it will be running on port 8000. Okay. And the command that needs to be run when the container starts, right? That is what we declare in the CMD, the Docker file. Now, so we have defined Docker file, we have the code base, right? Now we'll move to build the image. So how is exactly the image built? So for installing Docker, there are multiple ways. We can have Docker desktop installed in a system, or maybe you can pretty much run in any server if there is available to that. So the command is pretty simple. You mention Docker build -t and you name the image. Suppose it can be pretty much anything. Backend -image. That's the name of the image. And then we give a tag. So tag is basically differentiating so the way of maintaining versions of your application. Suppose I currently built one image with 0.00, 1.00. In future, maybe I'll make some changes. What I need to do is I need to increment or maybe change the tag so that I can differentiate which image has what in it as in code. Basically maintain multiple versions of your code so that you can go through and maybe uh, have an overview of that. So that's how we build and we give the context from where is the Docker file. It's in the current directory. So at the last, I give a dot. So let's see how it builds. What it will do is it will basically pull the Python Docker image. So wait, let me just run some command so that it's yeah. So I'll just run the command again for building the image. What it will do is so it is pulling the the Python image from Docker Hub. Okay, and it is pretty much doing the necessary mentioned in the Docker file, copying the dependencies, installing them, copying the code base, and yeah, so that's pretty much the thing. So for me, it's built very fast because Docker maintains cache. If you can see, it all shows as cached over here, right? So that's the reason it is building pretty very fast for me, right? So if you can show you. So this is a command to basically clean all the Docker images that I have in my local which are not running. So even now, if I build, again, it basically caches the entire thing, right? So that's how easy it is to build container. You have the Docker installed, you have your code base, and yeah, you pretty much install. I mean, build the container. That is something that will happen when we connect the repository with the Cloud Run. Okay, and the platform that will be used to build this image is Cloud Build. That will build, behind the scene for us, completely abstracts away the complexities. So that's the primary reason I love Cloud Run myself, and it's just so easy to deploy things. I'll just make you go through the things. Just I'm giving an overview of what happens in the backend when we connect the CI/CD pipeline with the repository to deploy in the Cloud Run. Okay. So that was the overview of how we build image, and if you want to run the image, it's that simple. Docker run. You just give uh, maybe a name of the image as backend demo, and the image name is that is to mention the image name, and that can be a that can be that can be um, okay. So it requires an environment variable to be present, and we can pass that using -e. I just pass into the page. Let's see what happens. Hmm. The name is not reusable. But, right. So I'm not sure why not able to do this. Yeah. If you see, the application is running currently on port number 8000. Okay. So that is what is going to happen in Cloud Run. Currently, it's running in my local. I have built I have the Docker file. I built the image. I made it running locally. Okay. So the same thing is going to happen in Cloud Run in the behind the scene. The reason I'm saying is to what is happening behind the scene. Okay. Let's just stop it for now. Okay. And let's go back to configuring. So we do have the backend running right now. What we'll do is we'll connect the front end now. Okay. So for that, you need to set up Cloud Build, one of the service of Google Cloud responsible for building the images. Not just images, a lot of things. Again, for our context to mention, so we'll be using movies versus repository. I have already authenticated on my part. That is something you need to do when you are configuring things. Okay. Then we'll just go next. As I mentioned, so the branch for which we'll be building is master. So we need to configure the same here. Just click on the drop down and click on no, wait. Let's just do one thing. Let's see what happens. I'll be just doing this demo live. If the things break, you'll be able to see what lots of things I'll be doing to make it come live. Okay. So it is asking for me to the source location of the Docker file where the Docker file is present. So we'll be deploying front end, right? So the Docker file for front end is present in the front end folder. Okay, here is the Docker file. It's in the front end folder of the repository. So what we'll do is we'll mention front end over here. Okay. It also gives us the provision of not even writing a Docker file. If you don't want to maintain Docker file, what you can do is you can just directly go with this option of just selecting your type of application, and Google Cloud is smart enough. It has its thing behind this in running to be able to figure out how your application is supposed to be run, and it does necessary things. It's just great. Okay? Me being a DevOps freak, so I prefer things in much more formatted way. Hence, I am going with the Docker file. It's safe. So here what I've done is connected with the GitHub repository with the cloud and service right now for deploying the front end. Okay, whenever I make changes to the front end for this, that it will trigger the build and it will basically build a container and deploy it in the production. Right. So Google Cloud has its regions out there, so it has its own data centers where you can run your workloads. So for us, the nearest one is Mumbai for me. Let's go there. And there are a lot of other stuffs that are out here. So once you get deeper into that, you get the overview of what exactly is happening. So just for now, just ignore stuffs over here. So I'll just keep things uh, right. The service name is, let's name the service as maybe something. Okay. So that's the name of the service that we'll be using. So we already have one as movie backend, which is the content service, right? Let's click on create. If you see, I'm not sure if you refresh the page, the pricing, the offering that Cloudon gives is huge. The amount of free tier that Cloudon has, even for a student to be able to, make use of Cloudon and run their own maybe personal website or maybe an application is very cheap and almost to nil cost. Okay. So what is happening in this behind this image? Let's see, check the logs, what's happening. If you recall the diagram that I showed as a part of DevOps, right? You see, it is building, it is, so these are the steps of the CI/CD pipeline. That is what is happening. Let's go back here and there we go. Right. So this, the pipeline, this is what the pipeline exactly is, right? And if you see, these are the things that is happening over here. It's building, it's pushing and deploying. Test cases is something I'm skipping for now because again, it requires some bit, lot of things that needs to be as a prerequisite. So it basically builds the application. See, this is how the output looks when we build the front end here. It has built the application and is already pushing the application to. So as I mentioned, right, once you build the application, it is supposed to be stored in a registry. So building part is done in Cloud Build, and the image that is built is stored in Google Artifact Registry, which is responsible for storing all the build artifacts you generate as part of Cloud Build. And that's build what is pushed to the artifact registry is referenced in the Cloud Run to use that. So Cloud Run is basically running your container. That's it. So you need to give a reference, a Docker image to run it. Okay. So Cloud Run is basically using the image that was built and pushed to the Google Artifact Registry to make it run. Okay. So we do see there are um, okay. Okay, so my mistake was, so it clearly throws the error as well that it was not able to run on port 8080. But for me, the application is not running on 8080. It was running on port 80. That is something I missed mentioning. Let's see how we can correct it on. So what we'll do is we'll edit and deploy the new version of the very cloud and service that we created. And here itself, we can see the port number is mentioned. We can change the port number. For me, it's 80. That is something I need to that is something I needed to do. Click on deploy. Okay. So, you know, Cloudon is smart enough to figure out when to build container and when not to build a container. Okay. Okay, why is it not running? Let's check the logs. If the issue that we have faced is in the Nginx configuration, if I can, that is something part of debugging again. Right. We were in the master branch. This is the thing for which it is failing. So I made some changes last moment. So that is how things happen. Okay. So you make changes to the code and maybe it breaks. So how you basically go back is so the Git is pretty much responsible for this. What I can do is I can just simply comment it out because I don't need that. So now you see the things in action exactly, right? So I have already configured the front end to build from the repository. Okay, I have configured the entire CI/CD thing. What I'll do right now is to just make the changes that I need to do, and no, so this is VS Code. The thing that I'm using is VS Code. It gives me an interface to easily manage Git instead of using from command line. I can easily manage from the IDE itself, whichever is compatible with you, you can use it. So I'll just make the commit. Let's just commit and push. So you'll see what happens in live now. So let's just wait for it to be pushed. Yeah, it has already pushed to backend. Let's just come here and look at the service. See, it has already started to build again. I didn't manually trigger anything. I just made the commits to the GitHub repository, and so the as per the configured part, right? It's triggered, and again, a backend. I mean, this thing that happened in the background was a service of Google Cloud. That's a cloud trigger that basically, notifies cloud build that something has changed in the repo. Please make a new build and deploy it. So that is how the DevOps pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline works, and the DevOps workflow happens. The developer keeps committing code to the repository, and once the code is pushed to the GitHub or maybe any VCS system, the code is taken from there, and all the necessary stuff that happen building and deploying it to the production. That was the very simplest CI/CD that I could show you. There are again a ton of things that come as part of building a CI/CD pipeline, the code scans, right? A lot of things that come as intermediate. Okay. So in respect of time, I would have to skip it. Let's just wait for this application to build. This push, and it is currently deploying. It takes some time. Let's see. Good. So if we can see, this build will be a success, as we can already see that has been deployed, all green. So that's something, you know, every DevOps engineer wishes on a Friday night to enjoy their weekend. Just kidding. Cool. So the front end is up and running now. Let's just copy this and open it up. Okay. So the reason I did this purposefully to show you what exactly went wrong here. So the front end, although is not throwing any errors, but it's not working as I expected. Okay. So what is happening is what thing is going wrong. It is not able to communicate with the backend repository, backend container that is running independently. Okay. So what we can do is if we can go back to the code base of front end. you can see in the front-end code base, the target mentioned is for local host. So the code changes that means so it is not pointing to the backend that we're supposed to be running. Okay? It is pointing to this local host. So for my local reference, I made this change. So what we'll do, we'll go to backend service and we'll bring back the URL from backend and we'll paste it over here. Okay. Let's hope this demo works. If not, I definitely have a great, even greater thing to show. If this works, then well and great. If not, then we have definitely something else out there. So the same thing would happen again, right? I have made changes in my code. I have committed. I have pushed it to the GitHub. The cloud trigger will notice that something has changed in the GitHub. It will notify the cloud build to build the container and again deploy to cloud run. Okay. Let's see if the code changes that I have made does the necessary. Series of steps happening over here. Very benefits is being deployed. Right. Should be deployed now. Let's see if the demo works. We are not in favor of luck because it's not working as expected. But yeah, no worries. I have even better demo to even show right away. Okay. So although if you see the purpose of CI/CD was to basically move the application from GitHub to the expressions of it was louder. Okay. So let's just I won't say deviate, but a better feature that Cloudrun gives us, that is just let me just make some reversing changes. So yeah, coming back to a bit about Docker before we just ending this session. So there is this thing called as Docker Compose. Suppose we have a very similar use case where we are supposed to be running multiple containers as part of our application. One is just two containers, one is backend, one is frontend. Okay. So if that is being the case, so we have something called as Docker Compose, which helps us to manage this, entire container lifecycle process. So to bring up the containers, the dependencies that they have in between them, to manage all those things, to run these containers without any issues, we have Docker Compose. Okay. So what happens in Docker Compose is, if you can see my screen, so we define the services that we have. We define where the content of the application is, the port that is supposed to be running on, the uh, the environment variables if that is something needed, and this other stuff that we want, we can mention in this compose file, and we can use this very single compose file to run our application. Right. For this stuff. Which branches? Let me check my current branch. Speed demo, right? So Docker Compose gives us this feature to run multiple containers together easily without much hassle using Docker Compose. And Google Cloud has been developing a very new alpha feature on Cloud Run, so that you can just directly run the. Wait, let me just show you how it's being done. So if I just run Docker Compose up, so it will build the container right for me right away from here, and even the both the containers, and it will make it run. Okay, so if you can see, both the applications running now without any much. So if I would have to run it manually, I have to go to backend folder, build the container, come back to content folder, build the container, make both of them run and connect. But Docker Compose handles pretty much everything for me, and we can leverage this very Docker Compose on Cloud Run also. How we can do that is, in the way I just run Docker Compose up, right? If you can see the command that I ran, Docker Compose up, that's the only thing that I did, and it's made run the backend and the frontend together. Similarly, what we can do, we can run gcloud alpha run compose up. So what happened locally is now going to happen. Mm, okay, my bad. I was in the wrong directory. I was in the backend folders. Let's check for the, yeah, here is the Docker Compose file, and I'll run the command again. Okay. So the same thing that Docker Compose did in my local with the Google Cloud this command alpha run compose item B. The same thing is now will be happening in my Cloud Run. So if you can see, it has already built some files for me. So if you remember, I mentioned about Cloud Build, right? Cloud Build. So that is used to basically build your Docker image in Google Cloud and deploy it in the Cloud Run. So it has been able to figure out what needs to be built for backend and frontend. And once the images are built, it will again generate a file of its own that will be used to deploy the same in Cloud Run. So that is how this feature is contain alpha stage. Uh, Get to be stable, but yeah, there's something new that I wanted to show you guys with. It would take some time because two of the images needs to be built, pushed, and deployed, so a lot of time. Till then, I had I wanted to share something with the student community. Yeah. So, uh, as Aarshad already mentioned in his talks about the Google AI Pro that is available free to the students, I believe today happens to be the last stage to avail the free Google AI Pro. So please do avail that offer as a student, because it's definitely going to help you a lot. Today happens to be the last date, if I am not wrong. So do avail that feature from your college mail IDs. Second thing, GitHub as well offers a lot of things for students as part of their student developer program. So how you can enroll into that is basically go to the website of github.com/education. There's a lot of things that Google GitHub offers you for free. Even the GitHub Copilot, right, to assist you for coding, and lot of canvas and multiple domains for you so that you can, have your own personal website and all those stuffs. Okay. So you can just join the GitHub education program and explore all the, you know, products it sees for free for as a student. Okay. So that is something you enjoy as a status of being a student to learn and integrate multiple things you build for your, on building projects or maybe other things as well. Okay. So it has already, so as I mentioned, it created a uh, YAML file for me to just showing how it has deployed the backend and frontend together in one single service. Let's just go back and see if it's up there. Right, if it's deployed the service, I need to make one change. So you guys will be able to. Okay, cool. So this was a pretty much demo about the CI/CD, the Docker image. We did cover a lot of things. I believe I do understand there's a lot to take in at very one single go. Okay. So the whole point of this overview, because to be very honest, to explain what a DevOps engineer does in a span of an hour or so is pretty difficult for pretty much any DevOps engineer. Okay. There are a lot of things as a prerequisite that we need to learn, we need to understand, we need to go through stuff. Okay. So I just had a very small moment of an hour or so to make you understand all the aspects of DevOps. So we did cover a lot. I did skip this part completely because in just bit of time and we had to complete the demo of Cloud Run. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. And this slides I'm definitely sharing with you guys so that you can go through and maybe have it on your own as well. So yeah, we did cover a lot of stuff in a very small short span of time. Okay. So if you want to reach out to me and so if you want to reach out to me and learn from me, you can definitely scan this QR and get connected with me on LinkedIn, Medium, maybe following GitHub. And so I keep posting a lot of stuff. And also about certifications, right? Something that I believe I had to mention. So certifications are something as the way you complete your degree, right? You get a, I would say, acknowledgement that you have completed a certain certain curriculum. Okay. The same way Google Cloud also offers certifications. Okay. So in order to basically mark your expertise in a given field, uh, Bharath sir, can you just switch off your mic for me?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you just turn off your mic? It's keep going. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So Google Cloud also offers certifications for free of cost to students as well. There is this program called a Get Certified program. I'll give the details to Saurabh so that they can communicate with you guys. So the GDG on campus is the entry point for all the students to learn a lot of stuff. Okay. So in case if you think it's just a promotional event, I believe it's completely, not as such a thing. Okay. Once a student is certified, it shows the level of exposure that student has in a particular field. Okay. Speaking with my personal experience, it's just been 2 years, but my first certification was when I was in final year or third year. So that gave me a lot of exposure to things that normally student doesn't know. But as speaking about the current time, this is something is expected from every student who's entering into professional life. Okay. So certifications that are available to you in free of cost, we definitely do not ignore that and take this chance to get the certificate, no matter what it comes with. Okay. Because it's again free of cost and there is nothing for you to lose and even invest. The only investment that you'll be doing is to learn and give the exam and get certified. Okay, that is something I wanted to mention about certifications. Okay, and if you want to learn more and more things and get a dedicated learning of maybe a roadmap, if you want to follow up, you can definitely reach out to me. I can definitely send you the PDFs. Get started with the DevOps and what you need to learn first, how it goes, and what also even if you are willing to build projects, right? Like maybe into DevOps and cloud, maybe in building an application, you can definitely reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to uh, help you with that. And yeah, that's pretty much about this webinar. I believe if we can have anything, if we do have time, I can definitely take on some questions, or else you guys can definitely reach out to me without. And just I still believe I'm a student. I live most of my people that around me are students. My life, like, I don't feel like moving out from a student life. I just love to be here. So you can just reach out to me, and I'll be definitely there to help you out. Okay. Yeah. So at last, I would like to thank you so much, Saurabh, for reaching out to me for this event. I know there's a lot of things that is happening, from your side, a lot of time invested and a lot of other stuff that you need to make sure in order to have this. Hearty thanks from my side. And Bharath sir as well for having me take this opportunity to share my experience and give a very small overview of what DevOps engineers, I would say, small short movie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Imran. It was a great learning curve. I'm from mechanical. I was much motivated to see your session and learn a bit from on whatever you were showing us. And it was a great session for all our students to also use GitHub for using all the resources so that they can enhance their skills. And it was a great session. And thank you so much for coming down. And in future also, I want to collaborate more such content related videos so that students will learn a lot more. And as you have already said about the roadmaps, I would like you to share us few roadmaps how to learn DevOps, AWS, because already you have done 14 plus certifications. And I also want you to suggest what is the step-by-step process how a student can start the certification program, because nowadays the students are much confused about what is the future and what should I learn. But everybody is saying data science, DevOps, AI, generative AI. There is a scope for what they need to get a job, but the main clarity what they want to have is what type of roadmap should I select and where I should start my certification process. That is one part. And from Google, what would be the advantage doing it from Google certifications? So if you can explain a bit about this, then that would be much grateful to our students.
Nothing. I would love to add to that. So for Google Cloud, okay, let's first talk about the roadmaps. Okay, so as you are in a student, in a student life, you definitely need to explore each and every field of technology. Okay, so you need to first figure out what you are willing to build up. So you need not have to be master of everything. You need not need to master development, data science, DevOps, cloud. You need not. You just need to explore what's going in that particular tech field, or maybe what are the technologies, what are the available, tools out there, how people working on that. One needs to understand that. Just have the exposure. See if that is something is intriguing you, or maybe you are very much interested or inclined towards. Once you are final with your domain of expertise that you want to build with, you will eventually find need to connect with certain subject matter experts over LinkedIn. So you need to be very so the amount of people that are on Instagram, if they move to LinkedIn and build their careers, it would be very much transformation for them. So the amount of time that you invest on Instagram, if you rather move to LinkedIn and start to explore and connect with people who are building, and they are basically the SMEs, the subject matter experts of their respective fields, you will be able to figure out what was their learning process. So that is something needs to be done in generic, I would say. So once you're done with the exploration part, we'll pick a particular domain and we'll get started with the basics. So for me, it was DevOps and cloud. I did explore each and every field. I did in fact, I have a year of experience development as well. And in my colleges, I did focus on bit on data science as well. And the thing that intrigued me was DevOps and cloud. Okay. So eventually, when I connected with the subject matter experts, so that's how I was able to get a roadmap from them. So the thing that I'm doing currently is something that has been coming from them itself. So that's chain of thing that happens. Okay. So that's how basically you evolve. When you want to build something, you want to move forward into a particular domain, you need to connect with the like-minded people first. That's the very first thing that you can do. So the people who are available on LinkedIn and posting are definitely the ones who will definitely, happy to help you with getting started. And me being one of them. Okay. So that is how you can basically the very first step of your entering into professional life. Second step is once you get an overview of what's happening, if you connected with the respective individuals, you will get to know what are things you need to learn, the tools and technologies. Okay. So if I talk about the DevOps and cloud itself, one wants to enter. So the very first thing that one needs to learn is about the Linux operating system and the networking. And I believe these are the two things which are already a part of college curriculum itself. So that is something I would say an advantage. But again, you need to dig deeper because college will definitely tell about what is this and how you can use it. But in order to leverage that, you need to put an extra effort. You need in order to master that or maybe build something on that. That is the extra effort that you need to put. Okay, because it's you again at the end who needs to use these things. So once you're done with this Linux and networking, you can get started with the same process that I had. From you can uh, start on programming language is something definitely that is important. Uh, Again, it's preference of the student itself. If you can go with Python, that is completely very go to thing for me as well to learn programming language. Once you're done with a programming language, then you can build some small applications, very simple sample applications, just to understand how an application works. So once you have learned about the programming language, you have developed very small applications. Then you can move on with the thing that I mentioned. In fact, I'll be sharing this slide. Then in there itself, we can see you can go with the overview of what exactly is virtualization, containerization, and what are cloud services, their models. With respect of time, I had to skip that, but that is something to get an overview with. I'll be happy to even share a PDF that I have made that basically shows the roadmap of what needs to be learned after what. So in order to get a complete end-to-end DevOps engineer once you're done with the uh, roadmap to be followed. So yeah, once you get into building stuffs and you integrate things. So the most important part is for any profession, irrespective of what technology you choose, is to build projects. Okay. Just for the very first instance, just see the existing projects, take it up from GitHub. There are hundreds and thousands of projects out there. Just take it up, make them run, and see how it works. That's the first part. Take learnings from that and build something out of your own. So that's where innovation comes. Okay, and that's what will, when mentioned in a resume, will make you stand out of the crowd. So most of the projects that are mentioned in the resume are completely copied from GitHub. So that is something I'm not entertaining completely. I want you to take inspiration from what they have built and innovate your own idea to what valuable thing you can build out of that. So once you drive, instead of just building for cause, you start building for value. That is where you make yourself stand out of the crowd, right? So that is something I believe holds much more is much more precious than you know just blindly going through things. Okay. So yeah, that's everything I would wanted to say about it. And talking about certification. So for a student, certification is something I would say extraordinary, of course, but because even for me till fourth year, I wasn't aware of the very fact what is called a certification. The only certificate I was need to participate in a workshop. That is all. But the actual certifications that hold value are from the providers who are basically running their services for like from Amazon, from Google Cloud, from maybe Azure. Okay, so multiple programs again. Not aware from anything from Amazon, but Google does offer a Get Certified program. That pretty much happens every year with 3 cohorts. Currently, it's the end of the year. They have already closed the program, but they're definitely coming up in next year. So a student can enroll into that once they are. So it's a first come first serve basis. So once students are enrolled into it, they bring out the list for the participants who are eligible. They need to select the certification that you are willing to take, and this certification comes with a price. But thanks to the Get Certified program, it will be completely free of cost. Goes through their all sort of processes. So once a student is enrolled into that Get Certified program, they need to complete certain labs, certain sessions, within a period of a month or so. Once they are done with that, Google Cloud will offer you a voucher that will completely make the exam free for you. So this is a very great opportunity for the students out there to take part in and have a certification in the early career, which will definitely make them stand out of the crowd. So yeah, that's pretty much out about this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Imran. That was great advice to all the students. And
Thank
I
you.
would again thank you for coming down for this session and giving this wonderful session to all students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.